Welcome to Energy Vista, a podcast on energy issues, personal and professional trajectories. I'm your host, Leslie Palti-Guzman. It's April 25, 2025, and time for a new Energy Vista episode. Today, I'm exchanging with Nicola De Blasio, an innovator and strategist passionate about low carbon transition and hydrogen. Nicola is also at Harvard School of Engineering and a senior fellow at the Belfer Center. Hi, Nicola.
Hi, Leslie. It's a pleasure to see you.
So I'm very happy and delighted to have you on, and we're going to talk about a promising topic, which is the intersection of blockchain technology and energy systems.
Yes.
And I must tell you that it's a topic very dear to my heart because back in March 2018, there was actually a New York Energy Forum discussion on this topic of energy trading and blockchain. And for the first time, I had brought my husband with me, who is an engineer, computer scientist, and had never shown any interest on energy issues ever. But because this topic was kind of at the intersection of our two worlds, this is when we realized that, our two expertise were colliding. And this is about the same time we started our company, Energy Vista, and then we built our platform, predictive platform, Leviathan. We ended up not doing anything with blockchain. We use other technologies like machine learning and other data sets. But blockchain was definitely on my radar, but I had not actually seen much happening recently. And so I'm very happy to have you on to tell us a little bit about the latest discussions around the use of this technology for energy in trading, in payments, and so on. So, what is the first thing that comes to me when I hear blockchain is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and so on. It's also transparency and decentralization. So tell me a little bit, like, how do you see it applied to energy markets, and where are we right now in the incorporation of this new technology?
So let me start with the first part of your question. Um, One of the challenges of blockchain technologies, I use the plural because there are more than one blockchain, everyone with its pro and cons, is that people, as you mentioned, tend to conflate the blockchain with cryptocurrencies. And they're two totally different things. The blockchain is the underlying technology that allows cryptocurrency to exist. It's just an application of the blockchain. It's not the blockchain itself. And because of this, it's always very difficult to have a conversation, especially with publicly traded companies or entities about blockchain, because immediately they think about Bitcoin and they don't want to touch it. From my perspective, and I come to blockchain on the other side of the equation from you, I always done energy, and then I started to talk with a colleague of mine at MIT who's an expert in blockchain, and we started to discuss with our students how to we could integrate blockchain and energy. Um, the value that I see in for blockchain in energy is the fact that in an energy world that is becoming more decarbonized, decentralized, and digitalized, the ability to basically tokenize assets or commodities, certify these commodities, and follow them along value chains from production to consumption is going to be key. Creating trust, immutable ledgers is going to be important. Think about how trading of commodities done today is done through certificate of origin. It's a huge amount of paperwork that you have to provide to the exporting nation and to the importing nation, and the back office amount of work. It's
So
crazy.
would it eliminate the traders? Like, would it eliminate the middleman?
it, it, let's see. Let me put it this way: it would reduce significantly the need for a back office. With blockchain, you can use what are called smart contracts. There is code on the chain that it's automatically executed when certain parameters, predetermined parameters, are met. And and so yes, a lot of the work that is done in trading for commodities could be uh, avoided.
So you mentioned trust, and I mentioned transparency. So basically, all the players interested in this kind of new way to exchange energy would be able to connect to a platform, right? To the same platform.
Uh, no, because as I said, yes and no. Sorry, because it's a little more complicated. uh, because there are many different blockchains, interoperability will become key. But the point is that you need to think about blockchain as a sort of digital notebook that can be shared and updated by many people simultaneously. But because it's decentralized, is also secure and transparent to everyone. Even if you can decide to keep some of the information proprietary, you have a lot of the information that can be shared. And because it's decentralized, once it's on chain, one of the value proposition of blockchain is that it's immutable, and so you can have transparency. But let me give you an example of why I think that it could make a difference. So, uh, as you know, around the energy world, there is a lot of talk about hydrogen. It's not the first time, but the situation right now is different from the hype that we've seen in 2000. Um, but once you produce a hydrogen molecule, which you can produce in many different ways, the molecule is the same. The difference is the carbon intensity associated with that molecule and the cost to produce that molecule.
Depending if we produce it via renewable or nuclear
Yes.
or natural gas or coal.
Yes. So basically, there is a rainbow of colors. You have green hydrogen, hydrogen produced from renewables by water splitting, which has a zero carbon intensity. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have black hydrogen, hydrogen produced from coal gasification, which has a carbon intensity of 20 kilograms of CO2 emitted per kilogram of hydrogen produced. And as you can imagine, in a world where energy world where decarbonization is becoming more and more important, being able to assign a specific carbon intensity to a molecule is going to be key, especially now that countries and blocks like the European community are having incentives to incentivize the production of green hydrogen compared to
Yeah.
the to black. In the US, it's about carbon intensities. The IRA was assigning was providing an incentive that could go a few dollars depending on the carbon intensity. But so, how do you certify the specific molecule, or if not a molecule, a specific finite amount
So it
as
will
a
help
certain?
with tracking those molecules with their
Yes.
green content and certification.
Yes, so you certify it, you put it on chain, and then you track the molecule from where you produce it to where you use it. Ideally, you can imagine once you take it off the chain because you have used it, you could actually issue a carbon credit. But once it's on chain, you would avoid all the issues that you have with carbon credits, the risk of double counting and not clarity of where it comes and where it goes. But
So
also would simplify.
who is going to be interested in putting all those information on the platform?
Well, governments that have to provide the incentives, they need to be sure that these incentives are provided to the right producer. Uh, but I think all stakeholders would have an advantage. Imagine, for example, insurance companies. Uh, as, and let's think about carbon capture and sequestration. You capture the CO2, and then you store it. You need to store it, let's say, in an empty gas or oil field. if you want to do this at scale, you need to insure this uh, project. How are you going to insure it? An insurer will want to know how much CO2 is in air, where it comes from. So the ability of certifying and tracking molecules, emissions, or commodities is going to be key. Another example that you could think of, think in the case of lithium. And I'm not going into the tariff discussion, but depending on where the lithium comes and is refined, there are different tariffs. So the ability to say that the lithium comes from Argentina and is refined by a specific company and implies what kind of tariffs you will have.
Yeah.
So um the ability to tokenize, certify, and put on chain
Yeah.
commodities is going to be key in a world that is
Yeah.
becoming more decarbonized and decentralized.
Will you be able, like, let's say for gas molecules, to differentiate, let's say, from the gas that is produced from shale gas versus conventional gas, or the methane content of the gas molecule?
Yes, as long as you can measure it, you can put it on the chain, and then you can track it. And so uh, various companies have actually studied putting their gas fields on chain, and have studied how to do the transactions internally.
Very interesting. So, to your opinion, what is the most likely commodity that we'll see first on a blockchain technologies?
So until January, I would have said I had no doubts that it was going to be hydrogen, because there was a practical need. The moment that the IRA assigned different incentive on as a function of the carbon intensity of the molecule and all the projects that were starting, there would have been a need to be able to certify and track these molecules. Uh,
But you're
Today,
talking mostly about the US markets. But my
also
understanding is
the
that it could be
European,
global. Yeah.
yes. Yes. But imagine, you want to ship green ammonia from Saudi Arabia to Japan and you want to certify that, the concept is the same. So the idea is that you create a virtual twin of your value chain on a blockchain. I mean,
So,
we
yeah.
discuss about tokenizing the tortoise in the Galapagos. Like the WWF basically allows you to adopt an elephant, we were thinking to do the same in the Galapagos.
Wow. Very
But you
interesting.
can also imagine in a situation where, let's say, you need to finance your project. You could also imagine that you tokenize the future production of an asset. So you have an oil field, you could tokenize the oil field production and sell it, and then in the future, then you would have a return.
Mhm. So, do you think that the hydrogen is completely off the table, or do you see some prospects down the road? I know you've been focusing a lot on hydrogen in your research
It's
and
not given a choice, but
applications. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's clearly this U.S. administration may put less emphasis on hydrogen, but it doesn't mean that in the medium term it will not gain interest, or other countries may take the lead on. Like, how do you see hydrogen right now
so
faring? Yeah.
I think that the value proposition of hydrogen, with all the challenges of creating hydrogen market at scale, is still there. Today, we're talking about hydrogen because of a failure of the past. In 2000, there was another moment of hype about hydrogen. It was basically being considered for mobility application, especially in light duty. And it faded away for two reasons. The first one was that in the light duty segment of transportation, EVs batteries, lithium batteries, were so much farther down the innovation and learning cycles that governments were moving incentives from the batteries themselves to actually building the infrastructure. And the second one was that in 2000, the cost of renewables was so much higher than today. And and so when people say green hydrogen is expensive, so were renewables. But today we're talking about hydrogen because of the success of renewables. In 2000, a lot of people kept saying they're going to be too expensive. So as you know, the cost production of renewables has significantly dropped. This has created a situation in which the penetration of renewable in the grid started to increase, a grid that was not built to deal with intermittency, because as you know, renewables are intermittent. And so now today we're talking about hydrogen because there is the need to store this excess energy when you cannot feed it to the grid. And at the same time, once you have produced the hydrogen, the dynamics are going to be exactly the same as natural gas, which we're very much used to. They're not going to be the dynamics of renewable. So hydrogen can help to decarbonize a lot of sectors, especially hard to abate sectors. Think about steel production, cement, heavy duty trucking, shipping. It won't be probably hydrogen, it will be ammonia, but ammonia is produced from hydrogen. So I think that the value proposition is still there. But regardless of hydrogen, I think that the value proposition of blockchain is that you can use blockchain to basically certify and track molecules. There is another application that I particularly like, but I'll stop here. And
Yeah, yeah, no,
if you
I'm very curious to see. So you mentioned hydrogen as an application for the commodity to use blockchain. What else? Another commodity or?
it's so when we look at the blockchain application in energy, we basically rank them on the basis of different parameters in short term, long term, medium term, and long term. Hydrogen is for us, it's in the short term. What I think it's the second application that could be game changing is what I call energy for all. Uh, and basically, today, there are millions of people around the world that live in energy poverty. Why do they live in energy poverty? Because they might be in areas where there are a lot of resources in terms of renewable, solar, for example. But there is no infrastructure that allows production to meet demand. And in a situation like this, if you want to finance a new plant, let's say a power plant, you need 1 billion. What bank, what financial institution is going to give you 1 billion if you cannot distribute your production? You know, they want long-term contracts. They want to see that you have clients. So blockchain could help in two ways. The first one, it could help to change the financing world, because you could tokenize the plant. So you say, I don't need 1 billion. I need people to subscribe to the increment that you want. Let's say 100K. So you
When you say
tokenize it.
people, it's like small end users, like households and
Whoever
indi-
is willing to do this. It could be me. If I have 100K that I want to invest in a plant, I don't know, in Congo, I could do this.
but that would
Uh,
mean a high level of penetration and education of the population on how
yes,
to do that.
which is one of the challenges of blockchain. I mean, again, people think it's a cryptocurrency. But let's just assume that you can tokenize a plant. So you change the way of you do financing. And then the fact that on blockchain we have what we discussed before, smart contracts. You could imagine peer-to-peer transactions, so that you don't need a central utility to transact. You could transact directly with your customer. It would be the people without access to electricity in that area. But
So
it's true also
peer to peer means who and who
person to person. So
person to
let me give you a different example. Uh, in the world of electricity, we were used to have consumers, producers and consumers. Now we see the emergence of what we call prosumers. These are consumers, they're also producers. It's like, I have solar on my roof, and I still buy electricity from the grid, but during certain times of the day, I might be in a situation where I can sell this electricity to the grid. So being able to do this through a smart contract and through a blockchain would simplify and increase efficiency and expedite operations at a level that we're not used today.
So it would help with the exchange, with the trading of the surplus of
Yes,
electricity, for example.
yes,
But you still need a hardware infrastructure to do that.
yes, of course. So
Okay.
this, I mean, it's like, you have energy system and then you have the financial markets that enable the transaction between the energy system. It would just be moving part of this transaction, but not only financial. We would actually trade the real commodity
But
on
if
a
the
blockchain.
person, yeah, if the person you're mentioning is in a very rural area and has a roof panel on the top of his house, he managed to sell its surplus of electricity on the blockchain, but he still needs to be connected to the grid.
Yes and no, because you can imagine having local energy markets. They are not connected to a. I mean, if you think about it, it's not very different from what is the reality today in the US. We talk about a grid, but we don't have a grid. We have a patchwork of different grids, like Texas has its own. So you could imagine that you have much smaller system, local system, that are not attached at the beginning to a main grid. They are decentralized.
Very interesting. So we mentioned hydrogen. We mentioned how you call it, full access to
Full
energy,
energy for all.
energy for all, energy for all. So where do you think we are right now, like in terms of those adoptions? Are we like years away? Like who do you think is going to plunge first and like jump in with this leap of faith that and will adopt these technologies?
So I think that it's it's a very interesting question, but it's a complex one because there are a lot of things that need to happen for blockchain to be able to to meet its full potential. I mean, it's great potential, but it's also real challenges. Some of them we mentioned them. There is the issue of misconception. Until people will conflate blockchain with cryptocurrency, is going to be extremely difficult. Because it becomes immediately a speculative market, and certain publicly traded company or governments don't want to deal with this, and they don't need to, because again, blockchain is just a technology that enables a cryptocurrency, can enable other applications. Then there are technological and security barriers. So system integration, interoperability. As we said, there are many different blockchain. We need to be able for them to interact with each other. Data privacy, cyber risk security are others of the aspect that needs to be addressed. Then we have huge regulatory gaps. We don't have clear policy standards or regulatory framework, and this really slows down adoption. And then a lot of the existing infrastructure lacks what I would define call digital maturity to interact with blockchain. So these are the challenges that will need to be addressed. And to do this is going to be important that all stakeholders work together to address them. And today, this is not happening.
Yeah. Would it be easier to use blockchain for the payment of commodities?
So blockchain is already been so the first case application of blockchain has been in the financial markets. So you see a lot of stable coins, a lot of work in an application on using blockchain to basically make a financial market more efficient. Um, but there has not been a there are a lot of cases, there are a lot of companies that actually make money, but there has not been a systemic adoption.
Like right now, for example, oil and gas, I mean, the main currency is still dollars, right? Do you
Yes,
see
and it will always be dollars.
so you don't think there
Is
will be a crypto commodity currency replacing the dollars?
But in energy system, you don't need a cryptocurrency. Why do you need a cryptocurrency? You have an asset. Your asset is the commodity that you're selling. So you don't need a cryptocurrency to have energy markets working.
Okay,
You need to token,
unless you want to launder money from Venezuela oil or Iranian oil or whatever.
but we are not going there.
Right. Okay. But so you don't see it as a potential solution to avoid volatility in trading of commodities. It's not an application.
I think when you make markets more transparent and more decentralized, by definition, you make them less volatile. Because a lot of the volatility in the markets is not really based on the underlying uh, economics. It's about market asymmetries and the expectation of prices going up and down or down. So the moment that you are able to give more transparency to the market, the volatility will go down by definition.
And again, traders will not be happy about that because they make money out of the volatility and the anomalies.
But I deal with energy markets, not with traders.
Right, right, right. So, in your
But
opinion,
listen,
yeah,
sorry, Leslie. In a way, I could argue it this way. Um, Kodak for many years was the top of the market, and then they missed the coming
digitalization.
technological disruption, and they went out of market. Maybe I should not have mentioned a specific company, but
I mean, it's a famous case study in Harvard Business School, actually, right? They
yes.
studied.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was actually thinking about that. But so the point here is that technological innovation will happen, and people will need to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you will become obsolete. It's not because we're ignoring a technology that the technology doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So if I were a trader, I would look very much into how blockchain could change my world.
Yeah. So, do you think the impulse for the blockchain technologies is going to come from the industry, like the energy companies, or the governments, or the end users,
So I think that
or the
it needs.
investors, actually?
I think it needs to be all of the above because company will test a blockchain technology. I mean, a lot of large energy companies have been looking into blockchain, but then the point is that if you want to make the application systemic, you need to have governments, you need to have regulation, you have to have clear standards, and so again, if we forget for a second that it's blockchain and we think about it as a technological innovation in general, in order to deploy new technology at scale, policy and the private sector, so policymakers and the private sector need to work together.
Yeah.
If this is not going to happen, it's not going to
Yeah.
work.
How do you think we should educate governments about these new technologies? Do you think they are educated enough about blockchain?
Uh,
Do you think it's even on their radar right now?
it is, I think, it is on their radar. I think that
I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. I'm talking related to energy only.
no, on energy, I think that they're starting to. I think that sadly, uh, but it's good for us. The focus has been on using blockchain for financial markets, and the use of blockchain for energy has been looked into by a smaller group of people and companies. But I think that it could really make a huge difference, which is a great opportunity.
Well, and I think, you know, doing those kind of podcasts, there is a reason, right? Like, I think it's also for education and raising awareness on different issues. So let's move to your personal trajectory, Nicola. So you're on a beautiful campus, right? It's Harvard University. You're in contact with many students. So I was wondering, like, what does it mean for you to train like future engineers, scientists, or energy innovators like you in one of the world's best universities. Like you,
The best.
first, the best. What's your feeling and the role you're playing here?
Well, actually, it's interesting because I feel like I am also learning from them every day. Um, I'm exposed, and this is a privilege, to the best and brightest young professionals that are starting their uh, professional careers in the world. They are unrelenting. Uh, they don't know what fear is. They don't. They are totally unafraid to challenge the status quo, and so I just love it.
Mm. And
It's an
so
experience that everyone should try once.
are you discussing with them the blockchain technologies and application to energy systems?
So when I started to work, yes, the short answer is yes. But to give you an example, when I started to look into blockchain's application into energy, it was one of the many projects that I had in mind. And one of the things that I love about Harvard is that you can work on whatever you want. Uh, so it was sort of a side project at the time. And I put a group of students on this to start to do some research and see where we stood. And I was amazed by the speed at which they moved. And I was joking with them that if in my previous life I would have had employees like them, I would have needed very few of them. It's I mean, we agreed on a series of questions to ask to stakeholders, both in the private sector and the public sector, both on the blockchain side and and the energy side. So asking, do you see application in energy for blockchain? And then to the other side, the opposite question. And believe it or not, I thought after we put the questions together that we were going to have a meeting to discuss who to reach out to. And the following meeting, which was 1 week after, they came with a list of people they had already contacted. And they contacted people also at the level of CEO. And it was impressive.
Nice, good story. Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for joining
Thank you,
the
Leslie.
podcast, and I hope we'll continue exchanging about this unfolding story, and it's a story of innovation too. So I think it's great for you to work on it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Leslie. And thank you for having me. And as always, good to see you.
Thanks. If you like what you heard on Energy Vista so far, leave us a review, and you can also send me a message. Sponsors are welcome. This episode was recorded on April 25, 2025. This is Leslie Palti-Guzman saying good day and good luck.